So welcome to the fourth session of this How to Build Your Course series Canvas training. And I have got my screen shared. Melissa Dagne, everybody's pretty familiar with me by this point. We're all good friends. Thanks for being here. I'm going to show you on the left-hand side the asynchronous resource that I have been building along with these sessions just as a way for people to review. And I know that attending each week can be challenging with all of our schedules. So over here, preparing graded assignments. This is really something that along with building content, most people use Canvas for. And I'd like to start out by explaining the difference between assignments and activities. So in Canvas, an assignment is actually the term used for anything that can be given a grade. It's not just assignments and turning in a paper. It's not just, specific one tool. It's quizzes, it's discussion boards, right? And so all of these things that you can give a grade to. And then there's also a way to make assignments not be graded. But activities, on the other hand, are going to be a little bit more inclusive of all the ways that students can interact and ways you can get them interacting. They also are going to appear, and I'm going to show you on your homepage, this course stream. You can view this, and the most recent activity you'll be able to see summarized in this space. We also have this view for students. So when you go into your student view, students will also, if I click home, they have a course stream as well. So this little graphic that I've included in the asynchronous, this just outlines sort of what would display here versus what wouldn't. And until students actually participate and the course is published and it gets going, there's just no recent information to show. So in my practice space. So I'm going to leave the student view and go back into my course. And so just want to make sure that, kind of to clarify, that's the terminology used in Canvas. If you ever call their helpline or you use the chat or you search in the guides, understanding how they use these words can just sort of clarify a little bit. And just so that you know, as we look through these items, everything I do in the discussion and quizzes area is going to automatically show up in my assignments. It's tied in the back end, and my assignments is going to control my grade book. So there's a lot of connections going on. And it's important to understand so you don't get confused with like, wait, I built this here. Why is it showing up in multiple places? Because it's definitely a little different than Blackboard. So I want to talk first about rubrics. And so if we go into the rubric link in the course menu, currently it's showing for my students, but I could hide that. I don't have to show them. There's going to be probably a couple of rubrics in your course. They came over with the template. You can delete them, you can edit them, or you can just click the add a new rubric and build one from scratch. I personally like creating rubrics before I go and build my assignments, just so that's already ready and I can attach the rubric as I build my assignment. Same concept for if you're editing them. So if you hover, you're going to get a little X to delete, or you're going to get the pencil, which is the universal symbol for being able to edit. And I can open this up and I can change the title. And then I can also come in and edit any of these individual points or descriptions. So got a lot of control. I will say I hate how it doesn't line up. It drives me crazy. It looks so wonky, but it works. And of course, as you make changes, you'd scroll down and always remember to click your red action button to save whatever you change so you don't lose your work. So definitely go in, add your rubrics. You can then attach them to your discussions and your assignments. So we'll go over to the discussion area. and I will show you how to do that. So in my discussions, I don't have a discussion, so I'm actually going to add one. So I'm going to click the plus button and I'm going to put in an example discussion. And I'm going to make it graded. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to click save and publish. And I didn't really put anything there, but that's okay. So if I had had this in the main discussion area, you would have seen it in my list right here. And to add a rubric, I'm going to click the title and get back to the, I guess, the zoomed in version. And the three dot menu, the snowman over here, you're going to have an add rubric button. So it's just that simple, comes up, you can find a rubric and you can look through all of your courses wherever you've got rubrics so you can share them amongst everything that you've been teaching. So just keep that in mind. And then once you find the one you wanted, you would click use this rubric and it would attach that. And I'm actually going to say cancel, not really going to do it. And then we will go back to edit the details. So I can attach a rubric that way. And then I want to point out that when I've made this a graded assignment, I obviously get all of the settings to control that. If you have points possible equal to 0, it will be an extra credit assignment. So any points that you go in and enter for a student would then be added on to their totals rather than counting against them because it's worth 0. So keep that in mind if you're building your assignments. Don't forget to put points possible or it will just add it as extra. Definitely want to choose how you want your grades displayed. I really like points. I think they're really straightforward, but you do have other options. So especially if you're doing any sort of participation, if discussion board's all about participation and they just did it or did not, complete, incomplete can be more simple. And then of course you've got different options below that even more so. Your assignment group, you can add a new one here if you don't have it set up, but I'm also going to show you the other way. So remember, Canvas is famous for giving you multiple ways to do the same thing. I will show you a place where you can control this. And so kind of like rubrics, we could also do some prep work to set up our assignments before we go in and actually create and edit them. But it's really neither here nor there. It doesn't matter how you do it. It will still accomplish no matter which way you choose. So I only have 2 groups right now, an assignment group and a test group. So I may or may not need to create a new one depending on what my syllabus says. So that's something to keep in mind. And then of course I always have my assignment area to tell the system who I assign this to. It's everyone, or you can do it by section, or you can do it by individual person. So let's say you want to assign section 1, their stuff is due Wednesday by the end of the day, section 2 is due Friday by the end of the day, and 2 students get an extra 3 days to complete the assignment accommodations. You would just click the add button and you can make as many assigned to variables as you would like. So you set that up, and then of course the X will remove it, and I'm going to put it back to everyone or it will not be happy. And because I don't have anyone enrolled, I don't have many choices. And then I can choose my due date and my time. Just like Blackboard, if you don't enter a time, 11:59 is what it will choose by default. And I'm going to say it's due Friday, and I'm going to say done. And then of course, I've always got the available from and until dates. So that's your open close. That's it. It's going to open up and let students start it after the date that you put here, and it's going to stop letting them participate here. So if you do not want to accept late work, simply make it the same date and time as it's due, and students will be unable to submit, and that's just that.
Would
Now,
that be changed for those people that had the extended time?
Absolutely. So each one you add has entirely different variables, so you can control that there. Now, it is giving me an error because my course isn't set to start until after April 23rd. So it's really smart. It tries to save you from yourself as well, and will give you, little reminders like that. So I'm actually going to close this and not put anything, and I'm going to click save. And would you like to go back? Not all sections will be assigned this item. Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm going to say everyone again because it won't be happy. And so I'm just going to leave this here as an example for right now, but we're going to jump over to quizzes. So you saw how to do a graded discussion. Very simple. You're basically going to have the same concept with settings, but just more options in your quizzes. And you're also going to see that we've got this new classic quizzes or new quizzes option. Okay, so classic quizzes is what we're looking at right here. And it's going to be what I feel is a very streamlined experience. New quizzes is going to be put into effect and take over as the only functionality summer 2022. So we have a little bit of time before we absolutely have to make that transition. The new quizzes is a little bit more complex. So I'll just leave it at that and I will show it to you. So I'm going to click quiz 1 that has 5 questions, and I'm going to click the edit button so we can take a look at what I'm able to do here. This came over straight from Blackboard, so I can change the title. I can add instructions using the rich content editor. If you want students to watch a video before they get started, the instructions will display all of this to them before they start your quiz. You can choose graded, which is the normal one that we're going to talk about, but you also have the option to do practice and surveys. Now that will go away with the new quiz feature. So there will be a couple of workarounds, but just keeping that in mind, if you do use these other options, that will transition out next year. Assignment group, just like in discussions, you have the option to choose what group you're going to put it in, but you do not have the option to choose a new group. So for this one, you want to make sure you've got your groups created so that you can assign your tests accordingly, which I'm going to put it in tests. And then I've got more stuff to choose from. So I can shuffle answers. So every student would see a different question answer arrangement. I can set a time limit, or I can take the time limit off. So completely up to you. I can allow multiple attempts. And then I can also control what score that I would allow them to keep if I do allow multiple attempts. Now this part right here, letting students see their quiz responses. It's checked by default to let them see what they responded and what they got wrong. It is not checked to let them see the correct answers. So keep that in mind. If you do not want students to be able to see how they did at all, you're going to need to uncheck this and not have them show it. Now, let's say you don't want them to see how they did at all until everybody is done taking the quiz. So a lot of people feel that way. You would just manually have to come in and then check this at the date or time that you're interested in releasing it. It's only seeing the correct answers that can be automatically programmed to release within a show and hide date range. Okay, the next one, show one question at a time. This feature is really good for long tests. So you know how when you're working in an internet space, and maybe if you take too long, it times out or the browser can act kind of weird. If you're giving a test with 25 or less questions, it's pretty simple to go through, it's quick. But if you're giving a longer exam, having it show only one question at a time, each time they go to the next question gives that opportunity for it to refresh, and it's just going to be a safeguard in the functionality. You, of course, can lock them from going back after they've answered if that has some instructional use to you. And then we can require a code to start. We can also filter by IP address if you want to make sure that only the people in a given area are able to access. So you can also enter that in. And then of course, this assign to is going to work exactly the same way that it worked in discussion boards. You're just going to see it again and you control it the exact same way. So that's the settings. That's part one. Part two is where are my questions? They are in another tab. And the beauty here is I can check this box at the top and see all the details. So that will hide it and I just see the questions, or it will show all the details and I see the answer choices and which one's correct. So you can see here, like it's a little bit weird looking. Well, this is just the formatting that copied over from Blackboard and how Canvas is displaying it. Sometimes it comes in normal, sometimes it does not. So all you do to edit a question is click the pencil. Here you're able to give a title, and a title for your questions is very useful if you pull the data reports after students take quizzes. A title is just going to be a really quick reference point instead of having to read through the entire stem. Just so keep that in mind. That's what this box would be for if you want to code it in some way. You choose your question type. It's already a multiple choice question, so I'm going to leave it alone. But I'm going to select the text here and I'm going to use my clear formatting to make it look normal. I still want to keep it 2 points, but I could change it if I wanted to. And then I'm also going to need to come down here and click the pencil for each of my answers. So it's a little tedious. If the appearance is not a problem, I'm going to click done. Then you certainly don't need to worry about this step, but I do just want to show you at least cleaning up one of them in case you run into, something that's more of a problem, especially if you had formatting on the correct answer and it would give it away. You'd want to make sure you check for that. Clearing, I'm saying done. And then one more. And then the most important part, make sure you save update question or you lose all your work. So you can give correct answer feedback, that's this green box. You can give wrong answer feedback, or you can give general feedback. No matter if they get the question right or wrong, they would be able to see whatever you typed in this space. And it all rich content editor repeat, same functionality. So I'm going to say update question, and now you can see the default font is all the same versus what came over from Blackboard, which has some interesting gray shading kind of going on behind some of this stuff. So once I've done this, I get two options to save or save and publish. So at this point, I'm going to save. And I did not publish just because I'm going to go back to my quizzes and I'm going to take a look at everything else. So here's something I have going on. This is a quiz with no information. There's no points. There's no questions. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. It's just an extra. So now that has gone away. And then I would just repeat this process for all of the quizzes that came from Blackboard. I can also click the plus quiz to add a new one. And I also have a place to manage my question banks. So I have question banks for each one of my 4 quizzes. And then I also have a survey with some questions. And then I have one unfiled question. I can edit and change the names here. I can also open them up and I can see what they have going on, just like I do in the quiz area. So I'm going to go back out to quizzes. Any questions on this before I show you guys just a preview of the new quiz feature? Okay, so when I click the plus quiz for now, you get the choice to choose between the two. Again, like I said, I feel like classic quizzes is just, it's like the simplified version. New quizzes is a little bit more advanced because it has some, better choices if that's what you're looking for. So it's advanced features. It does a little more. It's powerful. I'm going to select the new one just to create an example, but I'm not going to choose remember because maybe I don't really want to do that at this time. So I'm going to click submit, and don't worry, your classic quizzes will be converted to new quizzes with the click of a button. So you will be able to manage that transition very easily if you're not quite ready to move on to the new one. So it looks really similar in this area. So this is an example new quiz. And I'm going to put the title, and I can select all of the information like I normally would. And I'm going to be able to save down at the bottom. You'll see all I have is my mastery paths, which I will talk about when we talk about modules next week. So that's coming soon. It's a way to control your students' path through your content based on their scores. So if you have somebody who scores below a threshold, maybe they failed a test, you'd want them to do maybe a remediation activity. You can program it in a mastery path to take the students through that. So we'll talk about that next week. So I'm going to click save, and you're going to see next pops up this new space. Takes a minute to load. But this is where you actually put in your questions and you do your moderating. So if I click this plus, I get all of the options for what I can put into my quiz. So a multiple choice, if I select that, it looks similar, it's just a little more fancy and it has a little bit, more options on the page. You can also do feedback by individual answer choice as well. So it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit more advanced. Not going to be a bad thing, but if you're not ready, you can still use the regular quizzes for now. So I'm going to click cancel, and I'm going to click return to get out of here.
Is it more user-friendly with matching than Blackboard is?
I think that that's a good question. So if I come back in here, let me see. So what I do when I am ready to build a question that's anything other than typical multiple choice or true or false, I typically pull up the Canvas guide that goes along with it so that I can make sure I follow whatever instructions just in case. But talking about matching, let's just choose this one. It's pretty user friendly, whereas in the other quizzes, hold on, I'll show you this too. Quiz, where you at? We're going to go into the second one, edit. I'm going to pull up a matching question over here. Takes a minute. I'm going to say new question and matching. Okay, so you can see it's pretty similar, but the new quiz has just like it's just a little bit fancier of a layout, and you've got more options. I think though that it's fairly friendly. It's pretty self-explanatory for this one. You're going to have what matches, and then it's going to rearrange it for the student view. So, they obviously wouldn't get it in the same format. This is just for you to program it. It's pretty straightforward, but I feel like for the numerical value and formula type questions, I do usually follow the instructions just where I make sure I'm doing it right. And then I always use my student view button to go back and test it. And then you can also, when I click cancel, you can also preview. So I don't have to use student view to be able to preview. But if I use the student view, I will get that data in the gradebook for having taken it, whereas with the preview, I will not. So something to keep in mind. So yeah, definitely two different layouts to choose from, a little bit more advanced and I feel like definitely more user-friendly than Blackboard though. Okay, so I'm going to return back to my course. Oh, and it's like, it didn't like that, right? Everything just turned red. It's like, what are you doing? You didn't save, but that's okay. All right, so quizzes, that's pretty much your options. It's robust. It does just about everything you might want it to do. And anytime you create a graded discussion or a quiz, when I click on assignments, they are all going to be listed on this page. So you'll see all of my quizzes are here, and so is my discussion. So because they're graded, Canvas knows they need to be here because this is where I control my grade book. So super important. Basically, I would go through, like I can delete this new quiz example, so I don't really want it. I can edit my groups. So let's say I want to, these are going to be, actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me pull up the actual syllabus. So let's take a look at what I'm trying to potentially accomplish. I'm going to open this. And I can now close that. Okay, so what I have here, let's scroll down. Okay, so there's going to be 4 exams and they're each worth a percentage and the quizzes are worth 10%. So that's pretty straightforward. I can completely set this up. And how I'm going to do that is I am going to have the exams that are worth 25% will go in their own group. And this is just one of many ways, whatever you're trying to calculate. Once I explain it, you should be able to rethink what I'm doing to match your needs. So exam 1 and 2 average is going to be this group. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to put exam 1 and 2, just dragging and dropping. It's super user friendly. And then I'm going to put this at the top. And then I'm going to say group number 2 is exam 3 and 4 for the 20%. Exam 3 and 4 average. I'm going to save that one. I'm going to drag and drop those 2. And then the quizzes are worth 10%. So I'm going to edit this group and I'm going to call it quiz average. And save that. And then this one up here, because it's not part of any of my grades, I'm going to edit this one and I'm going to call this participation. And that's just maybe some stuff that I want to track, but I don't plan to add it as part of the student grade. Okay. So at this point, I've got my quiz average with all my quizzes. I've got my exam 1 and 2 and my exam 3 and 4. Now I'm going to come up here to the right-hand side, the 3-dot menu at the top, and I'm going to choose assignment groups weight. And this is going to open up and I'm going to have to give it a check to see all the options. I'm going to make this 0% of the grade. I'm going to make this one 10. I'm going to make this one 25. And I'm going to make this one 20. And that's not true. I have to double.
You got to double.
Well, why is it not 100? So I doubled and then I said save. And so what I just set up here is everything in this box is going to get averaged. Every single row gets a column in the gradebook, and every single box gets a column for the average grade. And then I weighted so that it knows after it averages, the average is going to be worth 10% of the total grade. So that really, now I can come over here to grades. It's set up my entire grade book. And once I'm in here, because I'd used my student view, I have a test student. So this is really nice. You can, as your test student, go in, you can take all of your exams, you can see exactly what they look like and how they function. And then it will give sample work for you that you can then come over and see what grading is like. So some of the features in here, so it's different than Blackboard that you don't really control any of it, but it's similar that you can change the view. So over here, you've got a couple of more options. If you use that mastery paths, you're going to be able to see the mastery path portion. You can see individual view and you can see a history. So keep that in mind. Then you've got your different views. You can arrange. The default order is going to have all of, it's going to go in the same order as the page that you set up on assignments, or you can change it around. You can also filter, so you can see only certain assignment groups or only certain modules. So if you do a week 1 module and it's got several activities, you can hide everything else from your view and just focus on that. And then of course you've got a couple of extra options. So one of them is notes. And if I click it, it gets a check mark. If I click it again, the check mark goes away. So notes is going to be this extra space right here that I can then say, you know, this person has had, you know, 5 absences. And I can save that. And I can take notes about each student. I can also come in and I can say that I don't want to look at my unpublished assignments. So if this has a check mark by it, you'll see anything that's unpublished, it's going to be big red. It's telling you it's unpublished. You'll know students can't see it. Or if you don't want to show, you can hide it all. The next little drop down here, super important, your import export. So just like Blackboard, you can export it to Excel. You can work with your grades there, and then you can re-import it and put them into the system. I highly recommend, as you're learning the system especially, before you start working, export your gradebook for safekeeping. If you want to revert back to it, it's super simple at that point. You don't have to do it manually. So that's definitely the actions that you might like. Then you also have over here on the far side, you have a settings icon. This is where you control late policies and grade posting policies. So by default, automatically posting grades to be visible to students is what will happen. If you don't want it to automatically post and you want it to be a manual release, you need to come back and you need to change it and make sure you update. Just keeping that in mind. You also have this feature on every single column individually. So you don't have to set your entire gradebook to function this way. You can just maybe do the exams. Maybe you want quizzes to release automatically, but exams, you want some extra time to be able to go in and, you know, check whatever you're checking. Your late policy though, keep in mind, let's say you've got some practice stuff. You want them to do practice quizzes. So you set the due date per each week of instruction for each practice quiz so that it pops up on their calendar, reminds them it's due, but it's not really worth a grade and it's just for practice. But you put in a late policy. They're going to try to go in and take those quizzes and it's going to keep giving them a 0 if you've put in a late policy because they have a due date associated with them and Canvas doesn't know the difference between practice and what's okay to be late and is not. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're co-teaching. I've had, you know, one co-teacher email me asking why her students keep getting a 0 and the other co-teacher has put in a late policy. So conflicting communication and students are like, what's going on? So definitely keep that in mind. I'm going to cancel this to close it. And so when you go to any of your columns, you've got 3-dot menu and you've got various options. And then of course that individual grade posting policy for each assignment. So you can change it here as well. Okay, so lots of options in the gradebook, but again, it is all controlled and built out by exactly what is on your assignments page. You have a couple of features here as well. You can edit assignment due dates all at once. So if you click that option, your whole list will show, and you can just set your dates very easily and very quickly in one spot. And if you don't want to batch edit and you want to make quick changes, you can click this 3 dots edit, and it gives you like the fast option here as well if you want to edit the name or the due date, the points. More options is just going to take you into the full features. You also have various choices over here. You can duplicate, so that's really handy if you're building from scratch and you want to make one assignment, and then you just duplicate it 5 times and change the name or the points. You'll also be able to do moving around. If you can't drag and drop, you can use the move to button and you can tell it where to go. And then you've also got, we talked about mastery paths, going to be in next week's, but this is where you would set them up. And then of course you've got the option to delete. You can't undo that. So if you delete it, it's going to delete, everything that goes along with it. So once students start their work, you want to be careful, don't delete it. And then you can also share sending it to a person or copying it to another course. So let's say you've built a quiz, somebody else wants the quiz, you can share it, or you want to put the same quiz in 2 different courses, you can do that here. Okay, so I'm going to double check that we have covered.
So here on the left, it says if you delete a rubric, it's deleted everywhere you've put it.
Yes.
Well, that's unfortunate.
I would
I may
ask.
forget that I used it in multiple courses.
Yeah, I would, I mean, I don't know. So once you, oof, I don't know if I was teaching that I would want to use a rubric in another course. I think I would probably best practice create my rubrics in my courses, just because of like the way when you share across courses, if they're connected like that, then you're right. I mean, what happens when it's deleted?
Would it change if you changed the name of the rubric and then it wouldn't delete across courses? Because we use the same presentation rubric for multiple courses. We use the same
Honestly, I would just recommend going into settings. Once you've got them set up in one course, import course content, select to copy it from whatever course that you set them up in, and then do select specific content and choose the rubrics you want to copy. There's no connection in them, then they're copied into this course.
Okay.
That's gonna be just a way safer answer.
But I could remove it, not delete it, and it wouldn't bother anything anyway, right?
Correct. Good question. We talked about pretty much everything that's going on over here. I do want to say that the student view, again, it's just super convenient to double check what I've got going on and what I've set up. If you say you practice something as a student and then you want to clear, be sure to just click the reset student. It will wipe all that data and you can do it all again. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to leave student view, and I'm also going to show you. So once I have due dates, so see this here, I'm going to say edit homework oral cases. I'm going to change the due date. I'm going to click this forward, and I'm just going to choose June 9th, just as an example. Say done. and click save. It's changed it. And now when you come over and you look at the syllabus, you're going to see I've got my course summary. It has that new due date here. All the ones that I don't have a due date for, they're still listed. They just don't necessarily know which order they're going to go in. So they're just going to be there until I program all of that information. And then this is also going to be visible on my calendar. So when I open, and the student's calendar, when I open that, it takes a minute for it to load, but I'm going to hop into June and I'm going to come over here and look for my course. Should be this one. And there it is. Now, keep in mind, especially if you're co-teaching, anything on this calendar can be drag and dropped and it changes the due date. So if you accidentally move something around, you'll notice it's not giving me any warning or any confirmation. It's just doing it. So many years over at UT Health of lots of doctors teaching the same course. Hey, who changed the due date? No one. It was an accident. Somebody slipped with the mouse and, now something's due 2 weeks off. Oops. So just keep that in mind. It's very sensitive. All right. That pretty much covers it. We've got some time for questions.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
I have a question. I'm jumping back to the quizzes thing. When I used Canvas one time before, if I remember correctly, that when you did the expansion of the quiz details, so you could see all the questions and choices at once, it seemed like there was a threshold, like that only
It only
worked
applies
up until a certain number of questions.
somewhere between 25 and 30.
Okay.
Yeah, the longer quiz, it'll actually tell you on the page when you try to do it, it will say, whatever the error warning is that it can't show that. So,
and the same for exams?
It's the quizzes feature is a quiz, is an exam, is a test, whatever you want to call it. It's all quizzes.
Okay.
Are we continuing to use ExamSoft though, moving forward or not?
ExamSoft is still available and integrates with Canvas.
So it goes into the gradebook. I just have to make an assignment?
Correct. So when you go into the assignments page, you'll see this is an option. So assignments, adding a new one. And this external tool, I do believe there's like a link maybe. I've never used ExamSoft. It's a teacher only tool. I've never been able to even see it. So either it goes here or you just create an assignment without, right? So I can say no submission. I'm not entirely positive. I'll have to double check that. And then you actually push the grades to Canvas from ExamSoft. So right now it's not set up because you're still on Blackboard, but in May when we transition, Blackboard will be turned off and it will be turned on with Canvas. Now I have worked closely with the vendor rep and she's just basically said, there's no way for us to test. So when you're ready, make sure you're prepared to call their technical support number and they will make sure somebody helps you figure out making sure it works. So I've got the instructions, but if you run into trouble, she said that they will answer the phone and help you. So
because now we have to manually put it into Blackboard from an Excel sheet, but
you are not supposed to have to do that in Canvas. Now, midterms for physical therapy, so because their entire school moved over together this spring, they have their component of ExamSoft turned on. They said at midterms it wasn't working, but they didn't tell me until like a week and a half or 2 weeks later. So it was kind of after the fact and we didn't really get to explore what happened. So basically everybody got the technical support number and hopefully we get it fixed. And hopefully finals works great. And then the rest of the university doesn't have any trouble because we've already figured it out. That's like the goal.
So you can just push grades? I mean, that's
Yes.
what we do in Blackboard now, and it works fine. You just push it and and as long as you've got the name of the column. So I'm currently grading essays that I had students upload as a Word document because I had a very specific rubric. But when I use the rapid grade or fast grade or whatever the heck it's called, when the documents come up, it's just text. It doesn't really show you any, like, if it was a Word document, I could see grammar or misspells or things like that. But it seems like when it comes up in Canvas, is it called Quick Grade?
Speed grader, yes.
Okay, Speed Grade. In Speed Grade, what I really have is just a window with text in it.
Interesting.
Is there a way to check grammar and spelling in Speed Check?
That's a good question. So SpeedGrader had 3 sessions last week at all the exact same times as my sessions, so I couldn't go. So I'm actually going to watch their video. So it's difficult for somebody in my position to speak on SpeedGrader because I never have students or grade work. So let me do a little digging and I will include that in the follow-up email.
I was in one of those, and Jacob Reinbach, music guy, religion music guy, he gave a really good, and he can grade. If he uses his iPad, he can actually use the pen and write on the product, not just type a message or anything. It was pretty cool. So I'd watch his video. That was
okay.
It's easy to insert comments and things. You highlight it and it'll give you a comment box and you can type into it. But I wish it would show misspells. And so what I have to do is have 2 screens, and I've got Word over here, which shows me my misspell, so I don't accidentally miss it over here in this text box. And then I have to type my comment in. So it's a little bit of a double work, and as long as you've got 2 screens, you're okay. But if you try to do it with 1 screen, it would be tough.
Yeah, no, I'll do a little digging on that and see if the community has talked about, if it's a specifically known, like, not feature, or if there's a workaround or something that I can suggest. So in my follow-up email, I'll be sure to cover that.
The Turnitin function, do spelling and grammar?
I do not believe so. So when you choose an online file upload for your assignment because you want people to write a paper and attach it, then you get this pop-up plagiarism review, and this is where Turnitin is going to be for your options, and you get to select, sort of how you want Turnitin to function, as well as when students are going to get their report. Now, does it check for spelling? I don't think so. That's what I definitely want to do a little reading though before I try to answer, just to avoid any miscommunication. But there's got to be somebody talking about it though, because trust me, so many people having these conversations in the Canvas community. Somebody will have something to say. All really good questions. Anything else? Even, yeah, the things that I might not know that I can find out for us. Okay, well, I am going to stop recording and I'll hang out for the rest of the time. If you guys have more questions, I'm happy to stay.